Hey there. I just wanted to make a video about upgrades, and I'm not so much talking about things you really spend money on. There are different upgrades you can have for Transformers, sticker sheets from repo labels, and those are cool. I'm not trying to downplay any of the actual different upgrades you can purchase. But I'm more looking at just showing off some ways of making slight adjustments or enhancements to make the Transformers a little bit nicer and at least feel like they're a little higher end or a little more what you're even expecting in some cases. Um, One great way to just give a little bit of detailing to a figure is to pick up metallic Sharpies. These things, they have gold, copper, and silver. These things are great for just outlining things, picking out little details that sometimes get lost in, colors that, a solid, wash of a single color. A pretty good example of that is I did the fists for the big Devastator. Um, these things are all black, other than the missile pod things on the inside. But when you have them as fists, it's just a sea of black. So you can just take a silver Sharpie, and the metallic ones cover real nicely. And sometimes it'll take a couple coats, and if the parts end up rubbing up against other parts, you might have to reapply it. But you can see a lot more detail on here that you wouldn't be able to, with it just being all cast in black. Um, Unfortunately, many of the other Sharpies aren't as good at just doing a cover. Um, I have one that I've made quite a few improvements, I feel. This is the Beast Hunters Optimus Prime. Um, and I applied different colors kind of all over in on his sword. You can see that I put quite a bit of silver paint or Sharpie. It's not even paint, Sharpie to it, and there is quite a bit kind of all throughout around the windshield and the headlights. I can't remember if there's any silver coloration there or not, but I've done that. I've put a little bit of red right here, and then silver, right here. Silver on kind of his cuffs, right above his hands, as well as some black in there, which turned out eh. Um, and then I did some silver up here on his shoulder, as well as some gold on the tips of his shoulders. And then I also did on the side of his antennae here on the sides in silver. And then on his jetpack, I did quite a bit more gold work. And then you can see I also did some blue. And this is where the metallic uh, Sharpies cover real nice, but the other colors, not so much. I really wish that they did cover, because um, I also tried with a Fall of Cybertron Skywarp, to do like hot pink, and some of the detailing, because in the game, they had like shining kind of energon looks all over. And I would really love to be able to do that myself, even if they can't. And Sharpies are great because you can kind of get some nice fine details. I'm not great with a brush, so trying to paint detail for me is just very difficult. But using Sharpies, and like I said, these metallic ones are great. I have a couple other examples of ones that I've done with the silver Sharpie. Here's the evasion mode Optimus Prime, and you know, with him, there's silver striping along the front. A lot of the all the silver here on his arms, as well as doing all the hubcaps and rims. And you know, as of late, this has become a pretty common thing for regular Hasbro the figures, is to just do solid black tires, wheels, and you know, it's the nice thing about doing it on the black is if you end up making a mistake, if you end up with like a, you know, stray mark somewhere, then you can use a black Sharpie, because you know you're on a black surface to kind of correct it. So that's nice. I also did his pipes up here. I did some detailing down here on his feet as well. But you know, it takes a little bit of time, and like I said, especially when you have to reapply the color, you know, to the different places. But I think it makes a noticeable improvement. You know, and I know for him, his box art seemed to have all these details, but then the actual figure didn't. He was just solid blue up here and then red down here, and you know, it didn't have all the nice detailing that the box had. And then one final one to kind of show as far as the metallic colorations is Ultra Magnus. Now, with him, I did the silver on his missile, on his shoulder missile pods. I did gold up here on the stacks, and I did it both on the inside and outside. And then all of the wheels. So, you know, I know the Takara versions usually have a bit more, bit nicer colors and stuff, but you can achieve a lot of that stuff yourself if you just put a little bit of time into it. I also put some gold here right on his knees. Yeah, but I liked the way that he turned out. And I may be forgetting some little areas. There are a few characters I've used other colors, and it's kind of hit or miss as to how effective it is. With the Transformers Prime Starscream, I used red, and I saw this from a couple different reviewers that I enjoy watching. You know, they did red Sharpie right here on the crest fin right on his head, which again, you kind of have to apply it several times. This is like that bendy plastic, you know, but it will eventually coat that. And I don't know if that's because it's unpainted plastic that it might take it a little bit nicer. But I also did the tips of his missiles, as well as this little fin back here. And I believe it was Pia who did this coloration, and you know, I really like the way he did it, and especially the fin on top really makes it look like Starscream a lot more. Yeah, and I absolutely love the way Starscream was in Transformers Prime. So, and this is an excellent figure just all around. One other figure, and I know this has been a huge disappointment for many fans with the Titans Return line, is Galvatron. Now, you know, there have been a couple different companies that have made different helmets for him, and you know, some people you know, break off the helmet and just glue it to him or whatever. I didn't want to do anything quite like that, and again, kind of doing it on as cheap as I can. But I just took, you know, some purple and then some dark blue coloration, and let's see if I can get this in focus here. It didn't turn out too bad. You know, granted, he does have a small head now for the size of the body, but it's not horrible, you know, and that way you don't have to use the dumb mask that comes with it. You know, you don't have to impede any of the articulation on his head, and you know, it's in my opinion, certainly no worse than the helmet, you know. So that's something else that I gave it a shot. Um, and then there are improvements. Generally, if like there's a major defect to a toy, you won't be the only one. With like the Robots in the Skies Grimlock, in general, I think this is a really neat design. I'm not a huge fan of this new Robots in the Skies series. I only have very few figures from the line, but with this one, many people were having issues with his joint, with his elbow slash the dino knee joint, and it was because of the uh, little gray piece in there, and it creates kind of this fake ratcheting joint. But the way it normally worked is that this piece was just kind of freely floating in there, and it would kind of get jammed, and for some people, like, they were actually kind of breaking the joint. So you actually, for this, have to take apart this forearm, and then you just super glue that piece, and you can even see where the stress marks are on his arm for on mine, and that's where it started. It would get jammed and just push up against the front of it. Um, you know, fortunately, nothing actually broke, and you know, I did fix it, but it is a bit of a pain in the butt. You know, in order to fix it, and Vangelis, I think, was the one. Was he the one who? I know he also had a kind of an upgrade video, and I'll share something else I did with the Beast Hunters Optimus Prime. But I know you have to remove the pin, and then you know the forearm can separate, and then you just super glue it down and put the thing back. It's not terribly complicated, but you do need like some small tools to be able to push those things through. So you know, and when you're working with like small sharp things, you know, again, kids, make sure you don't you know, either don't do it yourself, or you know, make sure your parents are kind of aware of what you're doing. Don't want anyone to get hurt doing this stuff. Not that it was anything that complicated. Didn't need any power tools or anything. But another thing with this one, and I know it was Vangelis who I saw kind of did a instructional video on how to do it, is this was a 20-cent upgrade, literally. You take 20 pennies and you're able to put them in his lower legs, and it just gives him, as bulky and you know, like massive as he looks, he was deceptively light because he has all hollow you know, parts. You know, like the forearm, even though there's no gaps or anything like that, it is just completely a hollow you know, shell. And his legs were the same way. Well, you can put 10 pennies in each of the legs, and that is probably one of the most complicated upgrades I've made, as far as like trying to self upgrade. But for that, like, there are several screws that you have to take out. You have to make sure that the ratcheting joint does not get the spring and stuff doesn't pop out. You do have to be pretty careful, but you can actually, you know, you just tape pennies together and put them in several like empty sockets in here, and it just gives them a lot more weight, and it makes them feel like so much higher end a figure from, you know, costing literally just 20 cents. So these are some ways you can take, you know, some figures that are really great. I mean, I absolutely love the big Combiner Wars Ultra Magnus. You know, I love his size, and I think he just looks just tremendous. You know, I like the Beast Hunters Optimus Prime. I like the Evasion Mode Optimus Prime. You know, and it's nice because we can just make them look just a little bit nicer. You know, and like I said, pick out those fine details that are kind of washed out by the coloration, or the, you know, just the type of plastic that they happen to use or whatever. So I hope this was helpful, because you can do this, and like I said, uh, just need some Sharpies for most of this stuff, and these things really can kind of end up being your best friend. And then you know, you must feel like you like the figure all that much more, because you know, you can make slight changes to them yourself, and you know, it's not terribly difficult, and you just take your time, you know. So I hope this helped you. Leave any comments or subscribe, whatever. I'll talk to you later. Thanks.